This week on the podcast, we have Jonathan Cotten. Now, Jonathan and I met in the wellspring of all great places, Strategic Coach, and it's in a program called the Free Zone. It's put on by Dan Sullivan. Entrepreneurs from all over the world are there, and it's a competition, and I like to call it Ego Free Zone. And I met so many great entrepreneurs there, but Jonathan was one that stood out a lot for me. He wrote a book called The Business of Character. I'm showing it on the screen right now for those watching the video. Those aren't, you'll understand what I'm doing there. It's The Business of Character, and I could sense that this was going to be a little bit of a different conversation because I do believe that our character and who we are is what, and it's who we are and what we're here to do. And so I just see this convergence of spirituality and entrepreneurialism, business, all starting to come together. And I figured I'd have a conversation with Jonathan, and it was fantastic. We went through the definition of character, what it means to be in the business of character. He gave us a complete outline of what his mission, vision, and values are in his company. He owns the Good Feet franchise store. So he's opening and owns franchises for the Good Feet store, which helps people with their orthotics and helps them live an active and healthy lifestyle. The interesting thing you're going to come out of this is you're going to find out he's very in touch with his spiritual connection and his purpose in life. But one of the things you won't realize is coming is that we talk about three things: is community, character, and cults. That's right. We're going to talk about a cult because he was in one, but he'll explain that a little bit later in the podcast as we get going. But the business of character, I thought it was beautifully articulated on his part. I love the conversation, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say about this podcast. So always, please reach out. Let me know what you think about the podcast. And without further ado, let's go explore. So you and I met at the Free Zone.
Yes.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was my first Free Zone event. It was amazing.
Well, it's not often that you meet a Viking at Free Zone either, so that was pretty cool for me too. So.
Yeah, that's true. It's the first Viking at the Free Zone. Yeah. But you and I hit it off really quick. And when you told me about your book, The Business of Character, I was like, I'm very intrigued. And I was like, I think we need to have a conversation on the Viking Academy. And here we are.
There we go. Thank you so much, Eric. I appreciate it. That you're very gracious.
Well, so thank you. And so I'm curious, what made you write the book? What was the impetus behind the book, The Business of Character?
I'm not sure we have enough time on this podcast for that, but I'll give you the real quick version. The thing is, I was a late blooming entrepreneur. All right. I was 48 years old when I decided to become an entrepreneur, and had been in corporate sales all my career, and had worked for predominantly great companies, worked for a few that weren't quite so great. But throughout that experience, I think I saw what the impact that a company that did things with character, did things based on values and lived them out, how that could have such a dramatic impact on employees, on customers, on the community in a variety of different ways. And nothing really, just the thought of going into business and buying a franchise and selling burgers or cookies or something like that just didn't appeal to me. I wanted something that would make a difference and that I could really be passionate about. And so the business of character is less about, hey, let me tell you my great story of, how I went from rags to riches or whatever, that type of thing. It's more about, this is what I believe. This is what we've been able to do. We've had success with it. But really the goal is, I'd love to inspire more and more people. And if they're already engaged in something like this, how to encourage them. And if somebody doesn't have that mindset in business, how can they maybe be persuaded to look at business through this lens? It's not an either or of either we have to always make a choice between, well, I'm going to go into the nonprofit world where I can really make a difference in people's lives, or I'll go into business and just make a bunch of money. you know, it doesn't have to, there doesn't have to be that divide. I think the two um, can be balanced very well.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, so you came in, you felt like you came in as a late entrepreneur, late budding entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Um, is this kind of your way of giving back to help someone who's at the front end to get it set up right, like an early stage?
I guess I don't think about it as giving back. I just think about it as just being, you know, to a certain degree. In that, I think that you know, if as a Christian, I look at things, whatever you uh, do it heartily as unto the Lord and not unto men. And so that's what I pray will be my attitude every day that I get up. But there's also a very definite, profound personal aspect to it in that just prior to, you know, 2 years, well, actually, I came into the Good Feet store because I had plantar fasciitis. I got relief from my plantar fasciitis with the arch supports that we sell at the Good Feet store. And at that time, I didn't realize it. Our youngest, we have 5 children. Our youngest, Kayla, was 15 at the time. And she was actually in the process of on a very difficult health journey. We hadn't, you know, really determined what it was yet. So a few months after that, she was first hospitalized for the first time. And that began an excruciating journey of trying to understand what had caused her to lose her ability to eat. And that eventually they were, you know, uh, pinned it down to that it was mitochondrial disease and the dysfunction of the cells had created this along with other things. And there's a lot of complexity in that. But it was something that in the process of walking that journey with her and being in proximity to a lot of people with a lot of needs and everything, I think it caused me, it was kind of like a midlife crisis. It's kind of what I say in my book. That, along with a significant faith crisis, because I'd been raised in a religious group all my life. And the being in the hospital with her and being separated from my normal routine just began to question a lot of things across the board. And you know, we ended up leaving that religious group, which I would describe now as a cult. And then,
You were
so
in a cult? Dude, I had
that's
no
how
idea about that. This is getting
that's
good.
how I would describe it. I didn't say that in the book because I didn't want it to be a distraction. I felt like, and hopefully it won't be a distraction here. But I think a lot of times things can start because people can believe things, and then over time, if the trajectory is not centered correctly, it can really, really get wacky. And this was a belief that looked at the culture and said, hey, our society has a lot of problems. And so we're going to do X and we're going to find the biblical verses to back that up and put it all together. And it becomes a very legalistic, controlling type of environment. And literally, it was being in the hospital with Kayla that I remember talking to a doctor one time, and the doctor feeling like you get this, he didn't literally pat me on the head, but it was kind of like, I'm the doctor. I know, you know, just don't worry about it. Go on with the program. And I said, you know, that's kind of the way people have in our religious group have approached things in times past, including me at times when people would question things. And I said, as I began to open my Bible and began to look at it, it's like, yeah, there's some things that don't line up here. And um, so we began to make that exit. I ran my first marathon that year, Eric. And I never thought I would do that, but that was a consequence of running longer mileages. There's a verse that says, be still and know that I'm God. And I think I was maybe more like Forrest Gump of run, Forrest, run, you know, I'm not sure, you know, but I ran my first marathon that year, then came in the next year, told the owner, I've never had a product transform my life like these arch supports. She turned around, looked at me. She said, you want to buy the place? And 4 months later, I was in business. That was my response to all the stuff going on into my life, Eric. It's like, why not, right? Buy a business now. Just add more something else into it. So there you go.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Okay, so just so you know, so I've been dialing into dialing in. I've been on a journey of self-exploration and seeking a higher power for over 18 years. And so literally I'm getting God shots all over the place. Like literally yesterday I was just having the conversation with God and basically he said to me, "Be still and know that I am God." And then you just say it here right on the podcast, and I'm like, okay, gotcha. Okay, there's the little tap on the shoulder, right? He's just constantly trying to wake me up, but that was another shot right there. Um, so so let's. Oh man, there's so much to kind of dive into here. So
I
so
just backed up the dump truck and
well, that was that was
yeah.
great. That was oh, I love that. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's go down the line of you thought you thought you found your group, your people, your church that you were at, and then you were in there, and then it's
You're
following.
born into it. You're
You're
born into
born.
it.
Oh, so you were born into
Yeah.
it. Okay,
Yeah.
you're born into it, and you're uh, shall we say programmed, conditioned to be
Mhm.
part of that, and then all of a sudden you start feeling this almost like like it's not resonating anymore. Like there's a dissonance that's happening inside you, and you're experiencing this event happening with your daughter, and she was getting sick, and you didn't know how to deal with it. And then you started feeling like things weren't quite right at the church, but you had this wake up moment when you said the surgeon kind of, or the doctor taps you on the head. Yeah, yeah, it's okay. I'll take care of this. And you're like, wait a second. That was like a kind of a wake up call
Yeah.
to that you're going down the wrong way. But there must have been something resonating on the inside that had been going on for a while, because it sounds more like a the straw that broke the camel's back for you.
Yeah. It was. There's no question about it. And it was, I think these things, they have to happen in that you can't do it all at once. But I think that, and I would say this about the medical community, we've had so many wonderful doctors, nurses, that kind of thing that have just their care. And so no throwing shade at the medical community. In this particular case, though, it was a condescending type of thing. Like, I'm the doctor, you're the whatever. And I'm like, well, I told one doctor, I said, I respect your education, I respect your expertise and your abilities. What I would ask you to do is to respect me and my wife and our journey as mothers and fathers of our daughter, and that we have a huge amount of information that you don't have about her. And so both of those things need to be held in balance. And we had similar discussions, at during the emergency room visits when Kayla has a sepsis infection and we know something's not right. And the doctor says, in one case, said, no, she's good. Send her back home. And one of her brothers literally carrying her out of the emergency room. And then we're back there 3 hours later, thankfully, because if we didn't come back and if she'd gone to sleep that night, she probably wouldn't have woken up. And I think those experiences create kind of hard to describe, but it's certainly when I look at it from a life sense, and just anybody that's charged with leading people or influencing people, that whenever I see an abuse of that, it creates a visceral response. It's something that it just makes, yeah. And so now when I think about it, being in business is the opportunity to pursue something that can make money and be profitable, and at the same time care for people and see each person as in that book Primal Intelligence, Angus Fletcher talks about seeing every person as unique. And from a Christian perspective, when we see every person as they're uniquely created by God, and having the curiosity to understand their specific journey, it's unlike anybody else. And there's so much to learn from each person. And that's why I love being in the people business. Is it frustrating at times? Yes, but it's incredibly enriching.
That's you've touched on that ethos of the Viking Academy, which is that I believe every person was put on the planet for a reason, but we're the only species that doesn't know why we're here. And so the whole point is the adventure is actually exploring the self, exploring who you are and what you're here to contribute. And so I love hearing your story, because I'm starting to tie the pieces together to going, okay, so this happened, then this happened, so that the doctor patted you on the head and did the little condescending kind of that, which then, shall we call it the straw that broke the camel's back, to say what I said before. then makes you go, boom, that's not right. Changes the way you're not going to follow the church that you were conditioned in all your life, because you could feel a calling within you. I almost call it like your soul calling. It's like allowing your soul back into your life to guide and direct you, which is your conduit to the creator or all source or the all father, whatever. And I've often said to people, it doesn't really matter what I call it, Allah, Buddha, Brahma, baby Jesus. It doesn't, as long as I'm seeking a higher creator, it responds to me, right? So, but that it was your soul was calling for you to do this, and that's part of this. Like, and I see how that there was something about your book when you showed it to me, and I looked at it, and I saw you. We hadn't really talked much, and I went, I need to have a conversation with Jonathan, because I could feel a positive spiritual energy from this book the minute you handed it to me. I felt it, like I could feel it, right? And so I know for a fact that in the way I see it is that you were meant to write this book. This is what he wanted you. This is what the creator wanted you to actually deliver to the world. So I love hearing the story in the background and going, here's some connective things that kind of showed you the path of where you got to there. The interesting thing, and I've done this too, and I'm curious because you obviously have studied the Bible much deeper than I have, but I've read lots of different spiritual texts. But there's been a bunch of things that I've read in the Bible where I'm like, it doesn't resonate with what shall we call it, the institution that is talking about it, what they're saying that Jesus said and what Jesus actually said in the Bible are like two separate things. Do you know what I mean? And I'm like going, he never said that.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah. No sarcasm included here at all, right? Like, holy crap. And it's just interesting how you said how they wanted to do this thing, and then they took a couple verses from the Bible and then used that as backup to justify their means. And it seems that that's happened over millennia, or the last couple thousand years anyways, since we've had Christianity on the planet, right? This is like only last 2,000 years. And I think it probably happened even before that. I'm not just saying it's for Christianity. I'm saying with religion in general. So they've taken it, and you take the parts you want to back up the agenda that you have to go do some pretty crappy things, some pretty heinous things too, when you look at it.
Well, exactly, Eric. And it's a terrible thing when you have it weaponized. And anytime that you have any type of authority weaponized, but especially religious authority, you're doing something in the name of God, then that becomes a very, very serious thing. And so one of the things that has probably been the most difficult issue in my life to resolve has been the shame of that, of when you're involved in something. And we're not talking about people drinking Kool-Aid or that kind of thing. It's not that type of thing. But still, it's almost more insidious in a way, because it's when it's your beliefs and that type of thing, then it can be really hard to unwire all of that. And but the thing of like, why didn't I see this sooner? Why wasn't I listening, maybe to people, but really ultimately more to the Spirit of God, to the voice of God? Why was that not something that I wasn't more highly attuned to? And this is where all the threads do come together, because what I find in business is that I believe that we're tested in three significant ways, and there could be more, but I believe for most people, these three areas create the most challenge. And that is, if you're married, how you treat your spouse and that relationship. If you're not married, how you treat those that are the closest to you. Maybe it's your parents or your neighbor or whoever else it may be. Second is, how do you function when you have influence or power over someone else? What does that look like? What does that feel like to those people? So if you're a parent, then how do the children feel? Or if you're a teacher, how do the kids feel? Or if you're an employer, how do the employees feel? Those types of things. And then the next area, I believe, in business, in the workplace, we're tested in a way because it has this thing called money involved. And you tend to see a different side of people that you often don't see, even in the other areas. I've seen people that were, their marriage seemed to be great. And maybe in the home, they seem to be really great. But then all of a sudden you get this money stuff involved, and all of a sudden they start behaving differently. So when we think about, so you think about the business of character, then I think that's one aspect of the opportunity in a business, is to truly live out what you believe in a way that's consistent, that people see, and they see it tested from a lot of different angles. And there's a verse in Psalm 15 that says, "Blessed is the man who swears to his own hurt and doesn't change." Blessed is the man who swears to his own hurt and doesn't change. So just think about that one principle in business. It's tested all the time.
So explain that one a little bit more for.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you make an agreement with someone, and that it may be that you're going to put a bonus structure in, and in your mind, the bonus is going to be difficult to reach, and actually they find that it's easy to reach, and now you got to pay out this money. And I've seen business owners who had a real problem, let's say paying salespeople, when they maxed out their commission opportunities, and then they want to change the commission plan because they don't like it. And that's just as one example.
So could you say the phrase again, the quote or the verse?
Yeah. Blessed is the man who swears to his own hurt and changes not.
Oh, sorry, because I misheard you there. Because
I may have missed a word.
Yeah. Okay.
So whatever.
Blessed,
swears to his own hurt.
Okay.
Changes not.
Okay. So blessed is the man.
Is the man who swears to his own hurt.
Who swears to his own hurt.
And changes not.
And changes not.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Got it. Now that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now
you sell a piece of property and it has mineral rights, and maybe when you sell it, you don't think that the mineral rights are worth anything, and then all of a sudden you realize that there's tons of and you just made a bad deal, you hurt yourself, but hey, if you made the deal, then live with it, type of thing.
Right. It's live that, and that's part of that living in character.
Right.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's just an example. And so after coming through all these things, what I saw, I wouldn't say that the decision to get into business was like some really well researched, didn't have a business plan. I didn't do, I'd spent an hour and a half in a Good Feet store before I walked in as owner. But there was something I knew what it had done for me. I believed that it could be something that could help a lot of other people. And it was an operationally simple business, which was an appeal to me. Primarily, it was solving it on the sales and marketing side. And I just saw it as an opportunity to be engaged in my community in a way that I hadn't been at that time. But as time went on, and meaning not a long time, but a few months, I got the vision that, you're like at a mission outpost. So if you think about the frontier of somebody having like a fort or something, that in a community of business has that presence, that you're a mission outpost. And as people engage with that business, either you're going to be a blessing to people, or they're going to not feel so kindly about you. And, obviously some degrees in between, but that was the thing. And so it was like, okay, well, this is my ministry now. This is my mission now. And that's how I want to approach it.
I want to get into the book in a little bit, but I just kind of want to come back to something you said there, is when you were in this other organization that you'd been brought up all your life. And so you were been conditioned and programmed to be involved in. And then you said that thing is you look at it backwards, you say, well, why didn't I see it sooner? It sounded to me like you almost said, do you understand? Do you know the reasons why you didn't see it sooner? Like, can you see that as can you look back on it and go see with 2020 and go, oh, well, that's why I didn't see it, because I was supposed to see it there? Or how did it impact you that way?
Well, I think that when you see clearly that it was wrong, then I think it's a natural thing to say, why did I see it sooner? If I could have gotten, but then yes, when you look back on it and you see the way things like that work, is it creates all kinds of ties to it. So if your family is involved with it, if you have friends there, if it's what you've known, if it creates a degree of familiarity and comfort, and if it's reinforced that this is the right thing, and there's all kinds of ways to how that's communicated that has influence and can affect your mind. That's why you don't leave sooner, or that's why you don't see it for what it is.
Is that for
because it's a
you as
very
well?
deceptive thing.
Is this
Yeah.
we're talking about this is why you didn't see it sooner?
Yeah.
But did you see the timing of you seeing it being the right time that you saw it?
Yeah, that's a question I think that I would say, maybe Eric on that one a bit undecided as to that I tend to feel like that it's not always, because this happened at this date, that was the exact date that it should have happened. It couldn't have happened any other time, and it could have gotten maybe a different outcome. So I don't believe that. I do see that there was a convergence of things that allowed it to happen. This goes back again to Angus Fletcher's book, when he talks about your past. And it really resonated with me when I saw that, and he saw the different threads when they're not, when they're fragmented, then it really impacts your future. And your future tends to be more singular because you feel your options are, this is my way of expressing it, your options are limited. Whereas if your past is not fragmented, but it's really synthesized and it's integrated, then it becomes your story. And it's not, you're not trying to distance yourself from one aspect of your story or anything like that. And that's how I feel about all of this now. It's my story. Could it have been different? What if, yeah, I don't know. But I just know that I know what happened. And now that's a part of my story. And I believe that God can use, because Romans 8:28 says that all things work together for good to those who love God and are called according to his purpose. So he can take even the bad things in our life. Who's the best person to counsel? Somebody who has, or to give encouragement to somebody who has dealt with drug addiction, somebody who has also struggled with drug addiction. Who's the person that can maybe sometimes be an incredible encouragement to somebody who's going through a divorce, somebody who's also experienced that. So those things can be, even though they're in of themselves, they're not good things, they can be worked and used for good, depending on our ability to allow them to allow God to use that in our lives. So,
right. So you see, and I'm just asking, so from your past, you see being involved in that, and now you've experienced that. So now that was the time for you to be, so you could help someone else who may be caught in the same kind of conundrum where they're going, I don't quite feel like I'm resonating over here. And you could say, I get it. I understand it because I've been there before.
yeah, even, if it's that, it doesn't necessarily to me have to be exactly that, but I can tell you that I have sat in a jail cell with somebody of another race with an incredibly different life experience than mine, and had mutual, I'll say, fellowship, okay, with that person, life fellowship, because they have pain in their life. And they may look at me and say, I can't see any way possible how there could be any significant pain in his life. But the reality is, it's true. It does exist. And so I believe going through those times, it creates capacity. One of the things that I will say about when you go through, like, caring for a loved one, as an example, who's sick, and you see the suffering, and it gives you a capacity and a degree of leaning into it and empathy for that. and just of saying, if we only knew as we walk down a street, if we only knew all that the different people were carrying, it would change how we relate to, you know, our fellow man in so many ways.
I thought you were going to go into, this, given that you're an owner of a good feet store, you were going to go walk a mile in another man's shoes. I thought you were going to walk, because like literally we could have that served that one up on a platter. Like literally,
Yeah.
don't judge another person until you've walked a mile in their shoes. But it's having that empathy. Um, and I was going to say, when you were explaining the person, I was like, you were basically explaining me. I'm a recovered alcoholic, drug addict, and also I went through a divorce. So it was interesting as you were explaining all those things. I'm going, Jonathan, you're talking about me, man. Like, what are you doing?
But there's a reason, Eric, that that we sit beside each other and we connect. You know, if you come at me like you've got it all together and life is all great and everything like that, you don't have to say those words. But if that's just the sense, it doesn't. It's a little bit hard for me to get started with somebody on that basis. And I think the same thing. And so the part of that aspect of clicking, I think there's that element of that. If that
Yeah,
makes sense. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. It's not I can't remember where the quote was, but it's that we're all wearing masks, right? Everyone's wearing these. We wear these masks. The less mask I see someone wearing, the more I'm interested in having a conversation with them. But if I
Yeah.
can see this as solid mask and it's just it's this outer shell that they're projecting to the world, I don't really have a lot of interest in having that conversation with them, because I know I'm not going to have a conversation with that person that's actually
Mhm.
there. So I
Mhm.
I completely understand what you're talking about. Is that is that also part of, and I want to dive into the book now in terms of, the business of character, which I love the title, by the way. The title's so great. It's the business of character, right? It's like, it is so poignant when when in business, is like showing a leader that has some vulnerability, that isn't that perfect one, right? When I first started in business, and I had a bit of what we call it ivory tower syndrome, because I started as a CPA, and we actually called it CA-itis. Chartered accountant is what we used to be called, but we called it CA was the acronym, and we called it CA-itis. And they created that acronym because of me. Because as soon as I got my designation, all of a sudden I knew everything and I was so smart. So they called it CA-itis. They get it, ego to the brain. And but we have these personas that we think we have to project as a leader or as a person. Once I got my designation, I thought, now I'm important. Now I have to project this thing. But I found that that's like, it's such a fake shell. And like most people now, and I'm finding more and more people can read through it. Either that or I'm just getting older and wiser. But my daughter sees through things. Like, she's 12 now. There's something with the new generation of kid that's coming in. They're open. Their eyes they see things clearer than we did. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
there's some
maybe,
clarity there.
and maybe could that be, Eric, that they're living in a world of social media, of mask, of airbrush, this and that, and stories and that kind of thing. And so, you know, when you're getting a steady diet of that, you don't need any more. And so when somebody presents as a real person, then there's that magnetism to that. Maybe I don't know. That's just a thought.
I think, it could be quite true that they've actually developed the bullshit-o-meter. You know what I
That's what I
mean?
was
Like,
gonna
they
say.
can just see it
Yeah.
right away. It's the bullshit-o-meter.
Right.
They're like, oh yeah, no, that's crap. And I was like, how
Yeah.
do you know that? Oh, you can just see it. I was like, I could have never seen that at 12. Like, how did you see that? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Every day my daughter came home from school, and does come home from school, that she's had a difficult day or dealing with, it tends to be with teachers. She's like, she comes home and she's like, oh, you won't believe what the teacher said today. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. Okay, tell me what. And so she says something and I'm like, well, how does that resonate with you? And she goes, it didn't make any sense. So I argued with them and I said, were you respectful? She said, totally. I said, and what did they do? She said, they stopped saying what they were saying, looked at me, and quickly tried to backpedal out of where they were stepping. And so you watch them step into a big pile of shit and you called them out on it. She goes, yeah, pretty well. And I went, so proud of you. Right. So, but you do it in a respectful way. Right. I don't want
Right.
to do that. But it's these, being able to see the truth behind it is so. And I think that's what you're looking, and correct me if I'm wrong with the business of character. People are seeing through it. It's even more and more important for a leader to have that character because they're going to be called out on it now, even more so. Not that that's a reason to do what we're doing as a leader, but that people are going to see it.
Yeah. Well, and I'll give an example. So publish a book, and then 2025, the most challenging year we've had, didn't go well, lost money. And so, and I when we had our annual team meeting, I said, one of the privileges of a CEO is when things go well, the CEO gets disproportionate credit. And when things don't go well, the CEO also needs to say, you know what? It's on me. And yeah, you can make all kinds of excuses about, well, there's AI, there's a lot of disruption in marketing and everything else. Okay, but that's just, and we'll get to our core value when we talk about that. But that's just what everybody has to face, and that's the hand you're dealt, and you have to deal with that. And so that's the business of character is not a statement of accomplishment. It's an aspirational. It's a commitment of saying, you know what, I know that give me enough time, and it usually won't take too long, and I'm gonna disappoint somebody. And so I just need to always make sure that I can own it and not excuse it or anything else. So
the one thing that again drew me to the book, and it still draws me to the book, is the thought that this is not just about leaders, it's about it's for everyone. You know what I mean? Like it's a way of being for all of us, as opposed to, and that's just been my sense of direction, that this having character. And I'm going to ask you this question because I think having character, what that word really means, like what does it mean to you? Because I see it as it's not only how you behave, but it's who you are at your core, and allowing that to come through. Which again, we're completely in alignment in our vision on this, is allowing what the Creator made us for to come forth. Like once you actually, my experience has been when I open up and I have a conscious contact with my Creator, and I'm asking my soul or my guide or whatever I'm going to call it for the day, please work through me so that I can express your will, God's will, thy will, not mine, be done. That's when things go, that's when it feels congruent. And I feel that's part of my character. It's my true character, as opposed to, I'm being a character. So, but what do you see as character in your thinking?
So I'll give you another verse, and I hope you understand that's just kind of how I think. But Proverbs 4:23, guard your heart, for out of it are the issues of life.
Guard your heart.
For out of it
Okay.
are the issues of life, meaning that it's like a life stream. So whatever is here, it's going to be evidenced down the road. We were on a Zoom call with Dan Sullivan back last year, and we were talking about AI, and he said, we need to be in the wisdom business. And somebody said, well, what does that mean? Well, what does that mean to be in the wisdom business? And he said, well, I'll give you an example. If you have sex with somebody else's wife, it never works out. That's wisdom.
That's a given. That's wisdom. Yep.
That's wisdom, right?
Yeah.
I don't care. It doesn't matter any of the other, factors involved. It just comes down to that. So if you know that, then back up from that and guard your heart. So if the end of the destination is it never works out, so on step one, not on step 1,360, think about where step one is going. Guard your heart and understand why you're doing what you're doing. and understand what's the motivation behind it. And it can be, and you're right, it can be tricky with that because we can get I think that's where that's that regular calibration, and it's daily, and it's maybe it needs to be multi times in the day. There's times, Eric, well, I'll sit there and I have started my mornings with prayer and reading the Bible and that kind of thing, and then I'll find myself at 10 o'clock in the morning reacting to something in a way. It's like, where did that come from? Like, I just, we just went over this 2 hours before, 3 hours before, 4 hours before, however long it was. And now I'm already, boom, doing this. And so, all right, step back, own it, ask for forgiveness, move forward, kind of thing.
Yeah, I start every morning with with a ritual. I call it, and I've named it the Viking Rise ritual. So I take every letter of the word Viking and I do something. The first one's vigilance. Every morning it's vigilant. I is invocation. So I invite the creator into my heart. I invite the all father. I invite my soul in, and to be that's, I believe, the ultimate collaborator is God. And that we were at the last free zone workshop. It was the 10X day prior to, and Chad had said, hey, picture your perfect collaborator, right, in business. And so everybody's figuring out these collaborators, and all of a sudden I have my bell gets rung, and I'm like, oh, God's my perfect collaborator. That's my ultimate collaborator in life. I'm like, oh, let that one in. Okay, boom, right? So that to me is the most important thing. But I go through that. Then I go through K as knowledge. I do a little spiritual reading, and I do AA literature because I'm in recovery movement. So I do a little bit of that and something in a spiritual text. Then I is inspiration. So I start looking for feedback from the creator. I come up with an inspiring thought for the day. N is nutrition, and G is growth. So I do a little bit of workout and have good food. So I'm dealing with my mind, body, and spirit. Bang on 100% beside you on that one. I'll do all those readings. I'll have myself. I'll meditate. I'll be in touch with the All Father. Okay, let's go forward in the day. And halfway through, I stub my toe and I start fucking swearing like a trucker, and I start freaking out things. And then I go, okay, where did that come from? Yeah, didn't we just set the stage over here? Now I turn into a total asshole over there. Like, it's like, how does that work? Right. Well, it just does. And I find that the more I practice, and I guess this is what you're getting back to, is practicing the business of character. The more you ingrain it in you, the more it can become, say, we call it subconscious programming, which is where I think 90% of our behavior is through unconscious or subconscious programming that we can actually actively reprogram. And in our cases, we do that through the collaboration and connecting to spirit, right? We go and that's the conduit and that understanding, but we still end up stubbing our toe and swearing at someone.
Yeah, that's right. We're human.
I think that's the problem with me, Jonathan, is I keep forgetting every once in a while that I'm actually human because I keep trying to want to be. It isn't the drive. I think it's an overriding drive for an entrepreneur as well, is always wanting to improve and make things better.
And excel.
It's that drive that's in just to keep growing and excelling. So there's always almost a little bit of dissatisfaction with the way things are and wanting them to make them better. Right. But so I tend to forget that I'm human. So in the business of character, so give me your synopsis of some of the principles that you cover off in the book.
Sure. We all talk about, many people in business talk about vision, mission, and values, right? And sometimes I have been seeing it both ways. I've seen it where it was expressed by an organization and it was felt all the way through the organization. Other times it was like somebody came up with an idea of like, we need to do this, so let's write these, and they go on the wall, and then that's about the end of it. What it was an effort to do was to really to put into words philosophies and mindset as to how we approach it, how we think about it, and how we're going to behave ultimately. So it starts off with our vision statement. Easy Step Enterprises, as an employer, Easy Step Enterprises is committed to the well-being of our employees by providing a safe, respectful environment full of opportunity for anyone willing to embrace our mission and values. And so the the first thing is we start with employees. We start with our team members. And that came from reading a book called The 10 Commandments of Business and How to Break Them, ironically. And the first commandment was the customer is king. And you know, the whole thing that if you treat the customer as king, often you're going to run over your employees to try to worship at the customer. Instead, if you treat your employees as royalty, as you treat your employees as kings and queens, they're going to treat your customers as royalty. And again, that's an aspirational thing. Safe, respectful, full of opportunity. There's a lot loaded into those words. To be safe and respectful means that we need to see each person as a human being that's viable, that their story, their who they are, that there's no conditions on that really as to whether it's safe or respectful or not. Even if we're terminating somebody, we can do it in a safe, respectful way, you know. And so the drive, part of that drive for growth is to create that full of opportunity. And what's the qualifier on that? The qualifier on that is embrace our mission and values. You don't have to talk like me. You don't have to believe like me. You don't have to look like me. You don't have to embrace our mission and values. So that's key. Then the second part of that is as a retail company, we're not offering just solutions and comfort. Our customers are buying hope. So if we think about if our customers are buying hope, and they truly are, often they're coming in. We're doing this from one of our stores, and met a customer that come in, was talking about how long he had dealt with, pain and everything else, and finally to be able to get a solution was a big deal to it. Another one, a fireman who had come in, 30 years as a fireman, and now wants to, and often they've been on that very, very long journey. So because they're buying hope, we have to be very relationally adept at what we do. It's not transactional. And actually, we've gone through a process recently where we've named the moment when something truly goes from transactional to transformational, where somebody came in, thought they were buying shoes. And then as we walk them through in the whole system of arch supports, and they stand up and start walking, and they say, oh my word, I cannot believe that pain is gone, or I can't believe how I feel, or whatever else it may be, all the different things. That's a transformational effect. Or maybe they leave and they have them for 3 weeks, and then they come in and say, the first few days I wasn't sure exactly because the adjustment and everything, but now I'm fully bought in. So they're buying hope. So we get the first two right, employees, customers, then we get to the community. As members of our community, we walk beside our neighbors on their journey because, as members of our community, we walk beside people on their journey because we love our neighbors. I'll say it one more time. I'm still can't get, I've said this a million times, I'm still messing it up. As members of our community, we walk beside people on their journey, regardless of their need, because we are people who love our neighbors and we believe it's more blessed to give than to receive. So to have a profitable business, you have to take care of customers, take care of employees. Those employees take care of the customers. If those things, are done properly, then you'll have the money to then be able to make an impact on the community. And when we do that, and when we engage our team members and do that, then it's no longer just a job. It's like they're finding purpose, not just me, but when people come into the store and they're able to help somebody and they go through the whole process and they find out that they cannot afford it, they can't qualify for financing, and they have an opportunity to bless that person with something called good feet, good hearts. And they will walk away with not having spent anything on it. We don't advertise this, but it's an incredibly meaningful experience for our teammates to be able to engage with that and to have that.
Hold on. So
yeah.
you give your employees the ability to actually give the people the product without even paying for it, if it's the right fit, if it's the right scenario. So it's kind of
so that they just have to go through the sequence. So they follow the process.
You follow the process and say, here's the person, this is why.
And if they get denied, and because often when they get denied, there's no other option. They can't have any access to it, then they're really crestfallen because their hopes are up.
Yeah. So there's
Then the
going through their
employees do not
medical
have
or whatever they can do. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, they don't have to contact anybody. They can leave with the product. So that's just kind of an example. It's one of those examples of that last part of that. So then that's our vision statement. So the mission
So
is,
hold on. So let's just
yeah, that's right.
encapsulate that again. So
Okay.
you say the mission, vision, and values is often stuff that, and I know this because I've got tons of businesses that I've been involved in, lots of startups that didn't go anywhere, and they didn't have a clear mission, vision, value statement. Like they weren't clear on what they were doing, especially
Mhm.
startups, because they end up going all over the map, and you're trying to figure your fit, and that's the way they are. They need to be nimble and figure out where it is, but they never had an overarching. Here's who I want to support. Here's the impact I want to have in the world, and they failed. But then I also had companies that had a, mission, vision, and value statement, and it was like it was up on the door. Like you said, someone did it, or I'm coaching in businesses, right? So I'm coaching businesses all over the world, and I said, do you have a mission, vision, and value statement? Yeah, I do. I said, what is it? They're like, oh, well, we can find it. I'm like, where? On your website? And I said, you don't know it? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, then if you don't know it, you can't live it. You can't breathe it,
Right.
right? Like
Right.
it's just not there. That with the mission, vision, and values, do you see the difference between the ones that actually it works and for which ones don't?
Well, I think it's like anything else. It's like we can all say, I'm an honest person, and well, how often do you practice it? You know, so you know, it's just so we have to practice it. It has to be emphasized. I think the words matter, how the words fit together, and are they do they follow a logical sequence, and are they telling the story? It's really storytelling, Eric, really more than anything else. With that, to me, that's what the vision, mission, and values should do. It should be conjuring up in somebody's mind, images of things, and so that's that sequence, that very intentional sequence of starting with employees, then customers, and then community is, you should be point to things and to say, when you're in the back room and that's an opportunity and you're engaging with another teammate, safe, respectful should be there. It should again guard your heart, because out of it are the issues of life. What you think is funny may not be funny to someone else, and it's not respectful. As an example, so that it should be a code that then shapes, because the vision is aspirational. You never reach it. It's a GPS setting. It's saying we're heading in this direction. The mission is the fuel in the tank, and the values are the guide rails. They're the flanges on the track.
Yeah. I love what you said there, that mission, vision, and value should tell a story, and story is how humans. I've heard this said before, that this is how humans we actually experience life, is through a story. That's what we're doing all the time. So, and stories are the thing that actually can stick with us. So it's, if you're telling the story, then it actually sticks. So I love that. So I'm taking that to the bank myself, because that's a beautiful frame around that. So your vision is employee, customer, community. And now we're moving on to your vision, or your mission, right?
Mission.
Yeah. What's your mission?
Help in our community live an active and healthy lifestyle, one step at a time. Okay, so if you think about having a mission, if you apply that, helping our community live an active and healthy lifestyle, if you stop right there and you apply that to the Fortune 500, how many of them could authentically say that?
Oh,
the
geez.
outcome
Huh.
of their business is to do that.
That's not the business of social media, I'll tell you that much.
Like
It's got wonderful
on.
parts to it, but I
Yeah.
mean, they're like, yeah, that's a whole nother conversation altogether.
Yeah.
So helping our community have a healthy and an active
live an active and healthy lifestyle, one step at a time. What do we know that unites the medical community? There's a concept that unites the medical community, and there's not very many that do, and that is that activity is directly connected to health. that when we feel pain and we become less active, it has a domino effect on our health. So if we can be in the business of helping people stay active, do all those things, then it's a great business to be in. We can wake up and be energized. We can go to sleep with a clear conscience of not having to worry about that there were side effects or there were other things that we created, as a result of it. And that's, to me, what I love about being in that type of business. Donuts are great. I just, if it, having a donut shop just wouldn't do it for me, because I would know that there's a lot of people who be coming in that probably shouldn't be eating them,
I totally get it. Totally get it.
And so, there's that aspect of it. So that I think is, there's a simplicity there with the mission, but it really, when you think about that, and you think about that, if we are saying, hey, let's hit our sales targets for this month, make sure we hit our metrics, let's do this, that, and the other, all the process, then what's the overarching why? What's that fuel in the tank? The fuel in the tank is we want to do those things. Somebody says, I want to help people. Awesome. Love that. I love to hear somebody say that, more so than I just want to sell something to somebody. I want to help people. And the way to help people is when they leave with a white bag that says the Good Feet store, because no one has ever written a 5-star review that I'm aware of that says, when they gave me their business card and a brochure, it just changed my life. There has to be that aspect of commerce take place. That's what we do. But it's a cool thing to be involved. So that's the mission.
So you did your vision, the mission, and do you have a separate value statement, or is that
yes,
big?
I don't know. Values are critical. And in some ways, the values have to be probably reiterated the most in a lot of ways. So we start off with radical integrity, and radical integrity is wholeness, wholeness, alignment, consistency. It's the courage to truly see ourselves, relate to others, and to face the demands of reality. So what do we mean by wholeness? Wholeness is what we talked about in the earlier part of this. And we talked about just the fact that we are human. It's the ability to get up and look in the mirror and see ourselves honestly, not to go into despondency about how bad we are, not to be filled with arrogance about how good we are. We're actually pretty normal. We have our good days and bad days. We've had our wins and always have our losses. Okay, take that out into the world. Just remember that. C.S. Lewis said that humility, it is to not, I'm sorry, let me get it right now. He said, humility is not thinking less of self, but to think of self less.
Right.
It's not a disparagement of yourself. Just don't think that the universe is revolving around you. And as I think about it, sometimes, if we became the most successful, art support store chain of stores ever in history, who cares? If you make $100 million, who cares? There's somebody else that's made 200. There's somebody else that's made 500, $1 billion. Just go on from there. And so just think about things like your why and be connected to truly who you are. So there's that wholeness aspect of it. And if we're not whole, it's very difficult for us to have relationships with other people.
Oh, very much so. Very much so. My
Yeah.
daughter, again, I got to come back to stories of my daughter. She'll come home from school and say, oh, so-and-so was being really mean and this and that, or they said something really nasty to her. And then I'll ask her the question. I'll say, do you think they like them? Do you think that person likes themselves? And if they act poorly towards her, and I said, do you think they're comfortable in their own skin and they like themselves? And she goes, no, they don't. There's no way, Dad. I said, because if you were comfortable in your own skin and you loved yourself, would you ever take it out? Would you ever hurt others that way? She goes, why would I need to? Why would I bother? Why? There wouldn't be any need for it, right? So
You're raising an exceptional young woman there. Yeah.
I feel blessed to have that kid in my life. She's every time I
Yeah.
talk to her about stuff and she picks it up so quick. I'm like, yeah, like, yeah.
And I think there's, and being a parent is such a blessing because my kids have taught me so much. And I see, how they come to things, and I just certainly I'm proud from a parent standpoint, but it's taught me so much about this. And actually, I think about this in relation to being an entrepreneur, starting on the entrepreneurial journey at 48. Um, Raising 5 kids will kind of be a good, a good course to to learn how to learn a few things about people, right? And so you and my focus was always I wanted to be able to spend time with my kids, and so I involved my boys. I'll talk about that some in my book, but they worked with me. I had when I was in the relocation business, I worked with Vice President Mrs. Cheney, and I would take my boys when they were teenagers, and they would come and help out, and they got to sit there and do stuff with the Vice President of the United States, in his kitchen, and this kind of thing, and Vice President Mrs. Cheney loved it. They loved having them there at 15 years old or whatever. But that was an opportunity to give them exposure to the world through business, and it was really cool. So kids
Okay,
have taught me a ton.
hold on. Back up, back up. What are you what you're doing? What were you doing with the vice president?
So I was in the relocation business.
What does
So
that mean? Relocation business.
moving people.
Okay.
So when for corporations or governments or whatever, and so then the 2000 election, boss said, all right, who's going to work on the Democrats? And this, remember the prolonged hanging chads and all that kind of stuff was the recount and all that in 2000 with that. So I said, well, I'll pursue Republicans, and made a bunch of calls, and finally one day I was like, I'm done with this. This is getting me nowhere. So I stopped. I wasn't going to make any of it. We were calling the transition offices or the within the Republican administration, and that day I got a call back and said, you left a message for in Vice President-elect Cheney's voicemail, and we'd like to talk to you about moving them from Dallas to DC. And because of the way the elections came, it created a very truncated type of process because this was like December 23rd, and then you have inauguration day, so very much shorter than normal, about a month shorter than it would normally be. So typically there was one company in DC that handled all the moves of all the people. But in this particular, I just happened to make the call, and you happened to get the right person. So anyway, I ended up working with them, and it was just a very incredibly unique experience to just handle that for them, and they were very kind, and later on would invite me to functions at their Christmas. Every year they had a big Christmas party at their home at the vice president's residence, and I get this invite, and you're there with all of the, you're talking cabinet officials, everything else, and here's the moving guy showing up, kind of thing. Literally, it was.
But that's because of your character.
Yeah.
That's because of who you were too, and how you engaged, and how you like the energy that he picked up from you, which is I picked up on you right away when we met, and that's what I think that was a big reason right there too.
Well, and so whatever that is, I will just say it was an incredible, it was an incredible experience, but it was fun. And the point was, one time we were working with them, they needed to have something moved from out to St. Michael's out of Maryland. And so at that point in time, I've got a picture of my son Gentry, and he may have been 15, but if he was, I think he may have been 14. So he's standing there in a uniform. You got a couple other people in the crew. Then you have Donald Rumsfeld, who was a neighbor of the Cheneys out there. And then you have Vice President Cheney. And then you have my other son, Jennings, who was about 15 or 16, somewhere in there. And and they're there, just having a chance to meet at the time some of the most powerful people in the world, and they're teenagers and that kind of thing. Meanwhile, their buddies are out doing whatever, So those types of experiences, I think, have always been something that but they learned a lot. And I told them when they were 15 years old, hey, you're going to be having a car here in about a year. You need a car in about a year, and I'm not going to loan you the money, and you're not going to get a loan. So you need to do some work. And so I can remember taking my son Gentry to go buy a truck, and he had already worked. He was 15, had already worked, and pulls out $4,000 in cash to give to this guy. And the guy says, well, you're going to take it for a test drive. And he said, well, I can't. I don't have my license. But what are you going to do with the truck? And he said, well, I'm going to buy it, and then I'm going to pay my brothers to take me around to jobs and that kind of thing, which is what he did.
I remember you told me that he started up his own business, and then he didn't have his license, but he bought the truck and got people, and then he hired people to drive him around to go do the work.
Exactly. That was a rabbit trail. Yeah. But let's go back to radical integrity.
Perfect.
So wholeness, alignment, consistency. So we talked about wholeness, alignment. There's this inconvenient truth out there, and it's called that there is objective truth. Actually, if you slam your fist into a brick wall, the laws of physics are not something that are malleable. They just work. And alignment. If you don't believe that, then you shouldn't be in business. You shouldn't go work for a business, because there are things called metrics, and metrics don't move, and they have to be aligned with for all of us. And we have to be able to look in the mirror and to see a fixed standard and say, did you adhere to the standard or did you not? Did you tell the truth or did you not? And so that's very important. And then consistency is, if you think about, often we don't think of consistency as an expression of integrity until you deal with somebody who's inconsistent. We kind of tend to take it for granted, but if you make an appointment to meet somebody, you're going out for dinner, and you're supposed to meet at 7:00, and 7:00 comes and goes, and then 7:10, and then 7:20, and finally you call the person, and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot, and it's maybe fine one time, but let that happen more than once and see how it works out relationally. Well, the same thing is true in business. Consistency is such a simple thing, but it can be so easy. So another thing that I love about Dan Sullivan is his emphasis on just simple things like, how about just show up on time? How about do that? So wholeness, alignment, consistency. It's the courage to truly see ourselves. And it takes courage. It takes courage to see ourselves and then to relate to others. We can speak the truth in love if we see ourselves and then see others. And if there's something to address, we can still speak the truth in love. It's the courage to truly see ourselves, relate to others, and to face the demands of reality. The world and everything that's happened in the world, nobody knocked on our door and said, hey, how about if we deploy this thing called AI and just have it change your lives? How about that? We're not at the gate of giving those things permission. So we have to respond. And we can think that, it's going to destroy the world, and who knows, maybe it will, but we just need to deal with it. And that radical integrity, that is the bedrock. There's two conditions that someone needs to have when they come to work for us. One is they have to have baseline integrity, and they have to have desire. Those two things, assuming that they're qualified for the job, of course. But baseline integrity is different than radical integrity. Radical integrity is something that is really, it's just like being an athlete and being an Olympic athlete. It's something that tests us in a way that we never say, yeah, I totally got that nailed. It's always aspirational, what we do.
So I just want to clarify this because I got a little bit turned around. So the values of your company, if you were to comment, your values of your company are radical integrity and desire, or
radical integrity.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And radical integrity, means, inside of radical integrity is WAC, right?
The descriptor, the descriptor is wholeness, alignment, consistency. It's the courage to truly see ourselves, relate to others, and to face the demands of reality. That's radical integrity. Now let's go to passionate persuasion. So when I wrote our vision, mission, and values, I actually didn't have this in there. And then it was like, business is going to survive. So what connects to sales? All right. Sell more. How about that as a value? How about that? That doesn't work too much. Well, what we want is we want it to come from the inside. So passionate persuasion goes like this. Passionate persuasion, believing to the core in the value of our products and services. We participate in transforming lives, achieving dreams, and realizing potential. We're unabashed advocates for the health and well-being of our customers. So it starts with to the core. If you're not bought in, the only way that you're gonna sell somebody is be disingenuous. If you're bought in, you can do it in a very sincere, just organic way, it just flows out of you. And then when you realize that not only do I believe in it, but this helps somebody not have surgery, or this helps somebody that they didn't think they were going to be able to run again, and now they can run a race, or this helped this athlete perform at a level that they didn't think they could do it. That's the part of how it relates to the customers, and then that gives you that confidence to be unabashed advocates for the health and well-being of our customers, which means that when someone gives you an objection, it doesn't make you fold your cards and go home. No, you just calmly respond with a question as to, so tell me more about that, Eric. Is it the price that you're concerned about, or is it how well it's going to work for you, as an example? So it's that sequence, leaving to the core, to the value of our products and services. We participate in transforming lives, achieving dreams, realizing potential, and we're unabashed advocates for the health and well-being of our customers. That's passion persuasion.
Got it. So value one, radical integrity. Value two, passionate persuasion.
Third is unwavering positivity. Unwavering positivity. When you say the word positive, it can sound as though we're talking about Pollyannish type of thing. Unwavering positivity, expressing joy and being a problem solver, a collaborator in wellness, a proponent of enjoying life. In a world weary with anxiety, we choose to be messengers of hope. So the first part of that, expressing joy and being a problem solver, when the alarm went off in bedrooms around the United States this morning, how many of them said, man, I hope we have problems today?
Yeah, zero. Like almost nobody, except for the entrepreneurs, because they know that the problems is why they create value. That's how they create value in the world. But yeah.
And for our teams, it's conditioned them to say, look at every problem the same way, express joy in being a problem solver. A collaborator in wellness, a proponent of enjoying life. A proponent of enjoying life means don't let people be resigned to sitting on the couch and waving the white flag that is over. In a world weary with anxiety, which unresolved issues, pain, limitations that creates anxiety, especially if you've tried other things that didn't work. In a world weary with anxiety, we choose to be messengers of hope. And again, to be in the hope business, that's powerful. All right, so that's three. The last one is persistent diligence. Having a champion's commitment to excellence, we embrace the truth of the timeless proverb that slack habits and sloppy work are as bad as vandalism. Proverbs 18:9.
Say that last thing again.
Okay. So having a champion's commitment to excellence, we embrace the truth of the timeless proverb that slack habits and sloppy work are as bad as vandalism.
Slack habits and sloppy work
are as bad as vandalism. So I'll give an example.
Oh yeah, I got you there.
But our reactions to the two are very different. If
very much so.
Throws a brick through the front window of the Good Feet store, what you have is you would have a collection of people coming out of other stores, people in the parking lot. Hey, what happened? We're sorry. How can we help? We'll tell people to come support you all. They don't do that if our work is characterized by slack habits and sloppy work. They tell people, don't go to the Good Feet store.
Right.
So just the simple things at times. How we were having an issue coming up the other day with, we needed to work on how things were run up in the point of sale. And so the discussion was, how do we deal with it? And I said, well, how would we respond if somebody was vandalizing something?
You'd rush to their aid.
But in this case, what it needs to be seen as, it's as serious as that, because in business, on the liability side, there's never a line that says missed opportunities. You never see that in a financial statement, right?
But there's lots of it there.
There's a ton there, right? I mean, how many business lost opportunities because the work was sloppy or the habits were slack? We didn't think this through enough, or we didn't follow the process, or we didn't follow up with the customer, all those things. So within each one of those values is tons of it's like creating a capsule, and then out of that can just be all kinds of different ways that it has to be integrated into people's thinking. So you take a concept and make it real, and like Chad Jenkins, right? Vision, capability, reach. Well, you've got the vision. Here's a concept. You put the concept there. Capability, you have to make it real. And then to make it recur, you have to emphasize and you have to create accountability over and over again.
You know what I love is on the back of your book, it says that character is contagious. That your character is contagious. And I love that, because that's like being a beacon of light, right?
Like a character of an entire business is, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you think about, Chick-fil-A, what comes to mind?
Family, sir. I was just in Chick-fil-A. We were down at Palm Springs having a vacation, and the kids were all like, we want to go to Chick-fil-A. And I'm like, okay, greatest. And I told them about the business model and what they believe in. Said, never open on Sundays. They're always closed on Sundays. So everyone can go to church. Like that's where, and good, wholesome family, that like it's clean, easy food delivered on time. I don't know what their actual statement is, but it's just, and we talked to a bunch of the people that work there and asked them how they liked it, and they loved it. They loved working.
And you go to Palm Beach, that's your experience. You can go to Dallas, you can go to LA, you can go to New York City, and the consistency is the same. You see the same, and that to me is it's amazing. We work on that. We've got that's what I probably there's not too many organizations that I would aspire to be more than that, but it's hard. It's really hard to get that.
Yeah. I love to know what they stand for. I think it's really important that if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. Like, what do you stand for? What do you not stand for? The fact that they're closed on Sundays, and that's just part of, they will always be that way. And you can feel it. That'll be that way till the end of time with that company, as long as it stays in that family lineage and they keep true to their values, their core, their character, right? That's their character. If you start, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I interrupt you. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that the minute you break character, then you become untrustworthy, and people then don't trust you because they don't know where you stand. Like, don't know where you sit, I think that's one of the things that I was doing a coaching call earlier just before I got on this, and I was doing a group coaching call, and one of them, I was talking about their future. I said, what is the bigger, brighter future? And I was saying, your decisions today are really easy if you put them through this filter that I created. It's like either your decision you're making today is taking you closer or farther away from your future vision of yourself, or the future, what you have, this goal in the future. And the one participant was having a hard time. Well, I don't really know, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, the problem is you haven't defined what you want your future to be. You don't know who you want to be in the future. So there was no goal to achieve. So I'm like, so of course you're going to make all these decisions. You're going to be battling around all over the place because you don't know what you're going for. You don't know what the destination is, right? But once you know what the destination is, you pretty quickly know if you're on track or off track, right? Yeah. And if you know that you're here for the highest good and that you're here to serve people in this manner, your decisions become pretty quick and easy. Is this going to serve the person at the highest level that I've set my sights on doing, or isn't it? And if it isn't, you tell right away, And if you don't follow that, people will know that you no longer, that's not what you stand for anymore. Your character has been broken, right?
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And that influenced me a lot in the early days when we had one store. We made the decision to be closed on Sunday from the start. And then as we've grown, and it becomes harder when you get into big metropolitan areas like DC, where the metro DC, Baltimore area is where I am today. And but people adjust. And it's amazing when you look at KFC. They're open 7 days a week, almost, maybe 363 days a year, probably. And I think the average KFC is about maybe $1 million in revenue. And Chick-fil-A, you're talking about 6 days a week. And some of those are $12, $13 million in revenue per location. It is unbelievable. It's just that there's no comparison, that there's no comp in the fast food industry for their sales, really. And
you would attribute that to, again, your book here, and I'm showing it on the screen for those who are not watching the video version of it. That is the business of character, because they have Chick-fil-A they envelop that their character. You know who they are and what they stand for.
John Borden, former Chick-fil-A owner, manager, joined us in 2018. He's a partner with me in what we're doing, and he's been a great person to kind of lean on and to have his counsel in various things. But his background with Chick-fil-A and meeting the Cathys and having that, it's really good. And John's the type of person that he will drop everything at the in a heartbeat and go to a store that's having difficulty, or an employee that's having difficulty, or that kind of thing. It's almost like that pastoral type of care, which I believe that to do it well, I believe that as an entrepreneur, you need to have that, so, yeah.
I have a parting question for you.
Yeah.
What is your vision what's the vision for your future, for Jonathan?
Yeah. So when I think about the future, I don't see myself retiring. We have 13 grandchildren, and I love to be a part of their life, however I can. And I tend to, I just don't know what the opportunities will be to express myself down the road. There's probably a time where, I will exit from this business. But what that looks like, I always want to be in the business of character. We have a small farm, we have cows, that kind of thing. If I do something there, I still want that to be part of it. It can just be expressed in a different way. But the overall goal is to stay in the business of character and to remember that by grace are you saved through faith, not of yourselves. It is the gift of God. So if I've received that gift, then I can be in the gift-giving business to the degree that I have opportunity, whether that's creating opportunity for others, it's helping other ways, it's coming along beside people. That's what I want to be.
So the vision for your future is to always be in the business of character.
Yeah, that would be it.
That is beautiful. And I'm going to stick a pin in it because that's perfect spot to end. Stay in the business of character. Jonathan,
that's what I want to encourage people to do, Eric.
I love it, brother. I love it. Thank you for being on the podcast.
You've been very gracious. Thank you very much. We had a lot of rabbit trails, but it's been a lot of fun, and it's been great to visit with you.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to the Viking Academy podcast. Make sure to leave us your honest feedback by leaving a review on Apple or Spotify, and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.